all of you, all the teachers, principals, my colleagues, to our webinar series by GPSC, that is Gurgaon Professional Council. We are an organization of 37 top CBSE schools of Gurgaon, working together in the field of education. And GPSC and all the members are really delighted to welcome Dr. Ashok Pandey to our webinar series number 2 today. Dr. Pandey is Director of Elcon Group of Schools, Delhi, Chairperson, Council for Global Citizenship Education, Advisor Lung Care Foundation, Delhi, and former Chairperson of National Progressive Schools Conference, NPSC. Dr. Pandey holds post-graduation in physics, consultancy management and education. He is the director of the Elcon Group of Schools in Delhi. He has authored several articles, projects, and research papers. His educational travelogue, The Pedagogical Life Essays in Educating India, was published in 2017. His edited volume, A Design Framework for Future Schools, was published in 2018. His third book, Launch Your Inspiring Principal Leadership, was published in December 2019. Recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award by Ferguson Humanitarian Foundation International, USA, Advait Foundation Leadership Award, and President's Award for his contribution in education. Dr. Pandey has a keen interest in quality education, teachers' professional development, and sustainable development goals. He is actively engaged in interfaith dialogue and peace building. He is an active partner for the UN's ACT SDGs and SDGs ambassador. Widely traveled to over 20 countries, he participated in the Peace Convention held in Seoul 2019, for action on SDGs held in Bonn 2018, and Indo-Australia Dialogue Melbourne 2017. A thought leader, Mr. Pandey takes speaking assignments on global citizenship education and teacher development across the world. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Pandey. Welcome to you, sir. I also welcome Ms. Aditi Mishra. She is a career 35 years. She is an alumnus of Puram and Lady Shri Ram College. She has worked with several DPS, RK Puram, Vasant Kund, Dubai, and now heads GPS Gurgaon since 2001. She has received the National Award from CBSE. She has been a master trainer for CBSE and has authored and ideated several books for children. Her hobbies include classical Indian music, dance, and reading. Welcome, ma'am. I would now request Ms. Aditi Mishra to take this session moderated and kindly introduce our speaker.
Thank you so much, sir. Let me begin. Let me first begin by thanking sir for accepting the invitation to speak to all of us at GPSC. I have had the honor of hearing sir speak at various forums. I have had the honor of being on the same panel as him, and needless to say, I am extremely impressed, not just by the wealth of knowledge, but by the willingness to share. So I have often read, sir, that it's one of my favorite quotes from Rumi, from Khalil Gibran, that you give but little when you give off your possessions. It is when you give off yourself that you truly give. And today you are giving us the gift of time, sir. 1 hour that you could have done something else, you have chosen to give to us. And let me tell my dear friends that sir has often also made an offer that in the next week or so, whenever we have time, he is going to address a group of teachers and tell them the nuances of blended learning and online education, an area which has still a lot of room for growth and a lot of room for improvement. And in advance, I'm very grateful to you. Can I please request Mr. Sandeep Mandal to switch off his mic? संदीप मंडल, Mr. संदीप मंडल,
दाढ़ी कटवा दी, और एक मनोज सर है, गोरे हैं, तो गोरे पे दाढ़ी ना,
संदीप मंडल,
वो शर्ट वर्ट पहनते हैं, तुरंत रखने देते हैं.
Who is Mr. Sandeep Mandal? From which school is he?
इससे पता लगता है ना, और सेलेक्ट भी उसी को करते जो सुंदर है, जहाँ सब तो 30 साल पुराने हैं. पहले ये सब नहीं था.
आरती मैम,
लेडीज आती हैं, उनकी पर्सनालिटी सब देखते हैं.
Nikita's iPhone, please mute. I'm so sorry about that, sir. As you can see, we are still new to technology. People continue to speak about Dadi and Bal. while the mic is on. My apologies. Over to you, sir. We are all eagerly waiting to hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Aditi. And, you thought of me, you invited me. It's such a great pleasure. I want to share with you, is the principal from Rotary Public School also is a member of this?
Yes, she is a member.
Group? Is she there in this group today? No idea.
She may not be, sir. She's actually retired in March, but she stayed on because of the lockdown. I think she's on her on the way to.
Yes. Why I'm talking of Rotary Public School is that today I have a perfect occasion to share that I started my career with Rotary Public School, Gurgaon in Sector 17.
Oh.
So you can make me honorary member of your group by virtue of my long association with Gurgaon.
Wow.
And you see, I want to share one more anecdote. Sector 17 and MDI are just opposite each other, if you know.
Yes.
And we had some connection with MDI professors. And I was a bachelor at that time. And just about the time when I was leaving Gurgaon for Mayo College, Ajmer, I got married. And 1 year later, my son was born. And as we call some kind of, providential, my son did his MBA from MDI Gurgaon. So you see the connect, the place where he was born, and he saw that building as a young child, and later on he graduated from there. He works also in Gurgaon. So I have a very, very emotional connect with Gurgaon. I worked in Rotary Public School. I'm still Mrs. Gulshan Diwan. I was connected with her. I'm not in touch with the present principal, unfortunately, but I'll do so very soon. So Aditi, you have made me nostalgic. You have brought me back to my roots. And that is where I started learning the nuances of teaching and learning. And thank you very much. Thank you, GPSC, the entire office bearers. I'm absolutely delighted. You have suggested this topic, Aditi, to me,
yes, sir.
Blending and the way forward, right?
Yes.
So I will talk about it. I will talk for about 30-35 minutes or so, and then probably we can open the floor for question and answer. So I will just give me a second. I'll share my screen with all of you. Aditi, somebody has to enable me to share my screen.
Aarti ma'am, are you there? Kindly enable.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I'm still disabled. Somebody has to enable me.
Make him the host. Make him the co-host.
Make me host.
Yeah. We are doing
that.
Yeah, just 1 minute.
He'll be able to do it with co-host.
No problem. Take your time. No problem. Aditi, Aarti is administrator. Who is administrator?
Sir, you are a co-host now.
Okay.
Sir, you are a co-host now. Yeah, so you can share it, please.
Yeah. So now it's fine. Perfect. Thank you. Perfect. Yeah, there you are. So I'm now good to go. Yes. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, once again. So blended learning, I have picked up two descriptions of blended learning. It is the integration or a combination of in-person and online learning in a skillfully planned and pedagogically valuable manner. So these two caveats are very, very important. And blended learning, also known as hybrid learning, is a flexible concept that ideally empowers both the learner and teacher. So we will have this limited contextual definition of blended learning, and we will build the future discussion on the basis of that. So this is the basis on which our future discussion will proceed. And here I am sharing with you. I will just let me make it full screen. You can view it now. So I have given a spectrum of learning that we are facing today. You see in the extreme, my left, in person, which we had pre-COVID, 100% campus based. We call it brick and mortar based. And when we move, even while we are in the buildings, and pre-COVID, we were embedding technology into our teaching in whatever manner we deemed it fit, or we were capable of, or prepared for. And just the reverse is happening now. On the extreme side, 2 weeks since April, we were in a virtual school. So that is the other extreme. In person is the left side. And now we have somewhere blended or hybrid, which will combine both face-to-face plus online integration. So right now, as the situation emerges, if for whatever possibilities the schools reopen or partially reopen, whenever, then probably partially will mean that some children will be in school and some will be at home, and we will be in a hybrid mode. So this is the spectrum. I thought that this image will stay with you, and we will move forward. But on what this blended learning will depend. This blended learning scope will cover what kind of content we do, what kind of pedagogy we use, what is the scale up to which we take it, the technology, the learner, the teacher, the learning spaces, parental engagement, and assessment tools. So these are the various parameters which will define the entire scope of hybrid learning. But let us pause here for a moment and go back to pre-COVID era. And it is not that we were not doing blending. We were doing blending. One, of course, we were doing blending in the sense that we were using technology, depending upon school to school, rural to urban, preparedness to another preparedness. Blending was happening in technology in any case. But, these 6 familiar blendings, I have brought it here. I'm just recalling it to you. Rotation inside and outside the classroom. You see, so some classes inside, some classes outside. Not only that, for physical education and other things we were going outside, but even for literature classes, or for some schools teaching under the tree or under the shade, that rotation was taking place. So that is also a kind of blending. Broadcast and embedding, as I told you, lecturing, being the sage on the stage, to embedding videos, PPTs, podcast, or whatever other methods we embedded. Individual and group projects. We do believe that children learn in groups also, children learn individually also. So we did some activities individually, and we did some activities in the group. So that is another blending to make learning effective. Theory and practical. We always knew that, the hands-on experimentation or experiential learning, or learning by doing, and the theoretical knowledge, both of them will go hand in hand. In assessment, formative and summative assessments. Another blending we did when our children, particularly at the board classes, they were on prep leave, but the teachers were in touch with them. They had their problems, and they will come once or twice a week to the concerned teacher and get their problem solved, or any clarifications they needed. So these are the familiar blending activities that we have been doing. And we have been doing it because we knew it consciously that this kind of blending adds to the learning of the children, to the experience of the children, and of course it will result into a better performance and outcome. So this is the familiar blending that we have done. And therefore, as I told Aditi, that I'm going to present to you, when we are in a hybrid mode, 7-point strategies as to how our blending or hybrid or a combination of in-person and online learning can be enhanced, can be made more effective. So the strategy number 1 is synchronous and asynchronous learning. So synchronous learning allows teachers to replicate what we were doing in the classroom. I'm talking and the children are listening, little bit of question answer is going on, board work, all these are happening in a real time. And this is synchronous, as the name suggests. And when we were forced into online, then our first response was that replicate that classroom work into a virtual, but we by and large made it synchronous learning alone. But asynchronous part, that also we were doing in a way. Many schools were doing flipped learning classes, or they were asking children to make a project and come and discuss in the school. So that was happening, and that was an example of asynchronous learning. So in online learning, if we blend the synchronous and asynchronous, because both of them have their merits and they also have their demerits. So we give a video and let the children watch the video, make a note of it, some critical analysis of the video, connect it with the topic that we are going to discuss. And when you go online or in person, let's discuss it. And let that discussion be initiated by a child, concluded by a child, and the teacher's role is that of a facilitator. So this kind of blending is going to enhance the learning experience of the children. The learning will be more enjoyable, it will be more engaging, and certainly it will be more effective. So this is the first strategy. The second strategy, of course, I have in the last 2 months heard that the parental involvement in the online learning, it has brought parent, children, and teachers together. I'm not talking of exceptions. I'm not talking of cynicism. I'm not talking of any adverse skeptic remarks. I'm talking in general, the parents' gratitude and gratefulness by seeing the kind of work that the teachers do, how they manage the classes, how they engage the children 3 years onwards up to 14 years of age, taking part in the prayers, meditation, yoga, physical exercises. I think they are now ready to accept that, yes, my role is very, very important. And as schools, we have to forge that relationship. And we have to bring parents, because the research, the reams of research is available to suggest as to how a parental involvement and parental concern can facilitate the work of the school. And as for the young children, if parents do not read to them, if parents do not sing with them, if they do not tell their stories of success and failures, if they do not bring the family values to them, I think the holistic education in one way or the other will suffer. And therefore, I am of the considered view that parental engagement and schools, they have to blend together to have a new experience for the teachers and the students. And therefore, I say intentional parents are our partner. This is the campaign that we should launch. Parents are our partner. There should be some intention about it. And there are 2 or 3 suggestions on this. Let us recognize the parents, their work, their appreciation, their contribution. The communication must be very continuing with them. Informal social gatherings, we do it, but let us formalize it in such a way that we are able to cover a large cross-section of them. Invite volunteerism from them, especially interest groups. So some parents who are experts and they're very keen to support the school in improving the health and hygiene, or some of them can manage, the administrative works or public liaison or relationship. I think as private schools, my personal experience has been that we have been very cautious of involving parents, and we have always weighed the pros and cons of it. But I have emerged out of that dilemma, and I find it is more prudent to take them on our side than to leave them just guessing as to what is happening to the school and as to what is happening to the children. So this is the second strategy, in my opinion, which will work in this kind of scenario. The second is with regard to the teachers. The teachers, so far we have seen that they work as standalone teachers. But many schools have experimented it in the last 2 months that if a teacher is very good in online presentation, probably 2 or 3 sections were given to the same teacher. And in some schools, I saw 2 or 3 teachers came together and they collaborated with each other in designing the content, putting in the videos, making the groups, enhancing the quality of the presentation and video. So there is a saying, I think this is the 17th century poet who said, "No man is an island," and that proves the point that the co-teaching could be transformative. And for that, as leaders, we have to redesign our schedule. We have to develop and encourage the what we call collaborative problem solving scenario. CPS is a very good strategy to solve the problems of the school. So let us say, for example, sometimes it could be a disciplinary thing, sometimes it could be cognitive thing, sometimes we have to plan something for the school, sometimes we have to generate an idea for the school. I'll share with you towards the end some techniques for idea generation and how to build the rigor in the school, a different kind of culture, because in the best universities in the world, and in some of the best management institutes and IITs in India itself, I have seen professors working together, and they take care of each other. They respect each other's space. They are highly appreciative of each other's work. Sadly, I would say, respecting the exceptions in this case, but sadly, we have not been able to develop a culture of working together in collaboration, where a particular project has been done by a group of teachers, except for some extracurricular projects or something like that. So if physics is a subject and it is to be taught, and if it has the input of strength and talent of all the teachers put together, probably it will enhance the learning experience of the children. And that, in my opinion, is the third strategy to enhance the blending and hybrid. The fourth strategy, of course, it's been a very, very long time that we have been ignoring the socio-emotional learning competencies of the children. As a country, we thought that the cognitive and technical qualifications are sufficient, and our entire system of education has been that let them complete education, let them get good marks, good competition, good admission in a good college, and then come to the job. But somehow we have neglected a very, very significant portion of human development and human flourishing, and that is the character building. And character building will come from the kind of support that we give to the children in socio-emotional learning. And therefore, the present researches which are going on, that what is the relationship between cognitive development and socio-emotional development. And the research has proved that cognitive development will be enhanced further if the socio-emotional skills are enhanced. And therefore, as leaders today, I think the well-being of the children, both at home and school, and developing them the qualities of empathy, compassion, kindness, forgiveness, these qualities are very, very important. And the researchers, have supported it. And therefore, we had to combine it. I think in the last 2 months, we worked on it with various, thought leaders. And the time of the past 4 weeks was utilized to develop SEL more than cognitive, because already there were a lot of issues. But there was no issue in developing SEL in the sense that sharing them a story and bringing empathy and talking about them and taking up the issues which all of us are grappling with, issues of health, well-being, food, environment. These things are, in my opinion, equally important. And if we have not been very, very purposeful, intentional and upfront about it, I think our curriculum and pedagogy and assessment, the problem with our education system is that we teach what we test. And since SEL is not tested, we don't teach it. So it does not mean that we should teach SEL and we should test, but it certainly means that we have to find some creative way to convince ourselves and convince the parents and students that what is the great significance of SEL is all about. Strategy number 5. You see, I think we have a lot of respect for children who show a lot of good performance, so good debaters, good dancers, good musicians, good in essay, good in public speaking, good MUN. We have always respected them. We have always banked on them because they have done good for themselves. They have done good for school. They have brought laurels, trophies, so on and so forth. But now it is time for us to examine, can we make a student agency as an integral to our teaching and learning process? So can we involve them in decision making? Can we give them a voice, and can we respect that voice? So student agency versus teacher supremacy. If we really want our teaching and learning process to be learner-centric and learning-centric, then probably as teachers, we have to take a back seat. And we have to bring the children in the forefront and ask them, how would they like this thing to be done? And when it comes to embedding of technology, I think the role of the children becomes even more important. I have numerous stories to narrate in the past 2 months as to how teachers learned from their own students. Simple things like muting and unmuting, to sharing of a screen, to using the whiteboard, to giving a breakup room sessions, what not. So it is not only that technologically their agencies are very, very advanced, even in thinking, critically thinking, finding a solution to the problem, how to generate an idea within a classroom. Because if we want our children to negotiate and navigate through the future, which is so uncertain, I think we have to imbue in them this ability to take risk, think for themselves, think about the problem, and adapt to the new situation. And that will not come when we do not trust them today, and when we do not allow them to make mistakes, and we do not allow them to ask questions. And therefore, this particular aspect of our teaching and learning, which happens in pockets, which happens in islands, should become a school-wide program for all of us. Even in nursery also, we should have a program as to how to foster a student agency and as to how to take the opinion of the young children as young as 3 years or 4 years old. So I have said it may be a strong statement, but we have undermined for too long the potential of the students to construct their learning, produce workable ideas, innovations, projects, and therefore we have to give our pedagogy a new look, which is more learner-centric and more learning-centric. So this is strategy number 5. Strategy number 6, which is very close to what I was saying previously, that our education system has suffered at least 20 years ago. If I see that a lot of changes have taken place in the last 20 years. So 20 years before, and even to a great extent across the country, I think children are moving from one grade to other. And they are waiting for their education to stop and they can start working. And there is no concept of lifelong learning, and there is no concept of personality development. So from grade to graduation, that is the kind of education system that we have developed. But no longer it is going to work. And the 21st century projection for education is based on different kind of competencies, different kind of literacies, and education is not a finite commodity anymore. Education is an infinite commodity, and that is why the nomenclature given to education is lifelong learning. It is a lifelong learning. Today, even we are learning. And if we did not believe in lifelong learning, probably we would have been doomed, or we have been consigned to history as someone who failed in his or her life. So lifelong learning now, if for our generation it is that much important, imagine for a very, very uncertain world, which our children in nursery or primary are going to face 15 years, 20 years, 25 years down the line, what kind of world they are going to face. And the only thing that will be a cushion and that will offer them resilience is ability to adapt, learning to learn, learning to be, learning to do, and learning to live together. These are known as 4 pillars of education. The Treasure Within is a document by UNESCO, and this document came 25 years from today, before 25 years ago, and how prophetic this document is. Some of the best minds from the world. And just for your information, the Indian representative in this UNESCO, this report is also known as Delaras report. And Dr. Kern Singh, a famous erstwhile Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, a philanthropist, a poet, author, and scholar, he was also one of the members. And a lot of Indian philosophies, like learning to be and learning to live together, was drawn from Indian philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, something like that. And that Upanishadic, the philosophy was embedded into this report. And therefore, the point that I'm making here is that this grade to grade finite schooling and learning should give way to infinite lifelong learning attitude in our children. And that is going to enhance the experience, the hybrid or blended experience that we have. So this was the 6th strategy. And now I'm coming to the 7th strategy, which I mentioned briefly in one of them, that we have to now blend the skills of the teachers, because teachers cannot work in islands. They cannot work in isolation. They cannot work for their individual satisfaction. They have to work for the vision of the children. They have to work for the vision of the institution that we are running in our respective schools. And therefore, this blending has to take place at 2 different levels. The teachers, their communication ability, their ability to design content, their ability to foster agency, all these skills have to blend to take care of them in person also, and to take care of the children online also. So this is the blending of their skills. And the second blending has to be is the co-blending of talents of the teachers. So for example, if we have to do online learning, one teacher may be very good in giving a content. The other teacher may be very good in producing a video. Some teachers can make fantastic PPTs. The podcast has been a discovery in these 4 months, where you can just record yourself and put it in the domain of the children. Let them listen to it, enjoy it, understand it, and come back to you and discuss it. So you will be very happy that if this kind of blending of the teachers' talent and blending of the talent of the teachers within, if this is ensured, and for this, if we encourage them, if we empower them, if we shout out about it, if possible, if we can incentivize it, I think it will be something which will enhance the blending experience that the children are going to have. So these are the 7 strategies. I think it is almost the time also. One more thing that I want to share with you. We are now in a passion economy. You see, this is a new concept which has been given by Adam Davidson. He was a journalist and reporter, and he has come out with this passion economy. And when we talk about the new skills that are required in the next 10, 15, 20 years, the Forbes magazine has come out with a set of skills, which is given by Bernard Marr, who is a futurist and speaker and a great thinker. And the passion economy, as Adam Davidson has talked about, you can Google about him and you will find. And he said that the passion economy, as against to manufacturing economy, is that where non-consumers and non-producers, they meet at a virtual place and they exchange goods, and that goods is content. So creativity, content making, somebody also said content is king. So in a shifting work environment, which is going to be unknown, different skill sets are required. And Bernard has talked about communication, adaptive skills, entrepreneurial skills, creativity, critical thinking. You know, these are the skills which are going to outweigh any other skills which are going to come out of our books. So there is going to be also, interestingly, a blending of skills. So far, we only thought that our cognitive skills will take us through, but now it is a very well blending of these skills that we are talking about here and the technical skills. And if out of these two, anyone is important, it is these skills. And therefore, we have to redesign our curriculum and pedagogy in such a way that we are able to imbue the children with these skills. So this is a kind of a rethinking that we have to do in our entire teaching learning process. And for that, I mentioned to you this exercise you can do. And as I told Aditi, that if I get a chance to work with you or your teachers, probably we can do it as a workshop. So what this idea generation strategy is all about. So you want to do something or 3 thought pieces. So around what topic you want to generate idea. So say, for example, right now, online learning or blended learning or engaging education or collaboration or technology or group work, something like that you want to generate. Now you have, let us say, 30 teachers, and break those teachers into 3 groups of 10 each. And one group you give this now block, the blue color. And the other group you give this green color, wow. And the third group of 10 people, you give them yellow color, how. And you give them half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever time is permissible. So the easy group will come out with 2 or 3 ideas which can be implemented within 10 minutes around that particular topic. The wow group will come out with 2 or 3 ideas which are difficult but possible, and that with some resource mobilization, some training, and some additional inputs, even they can also be implemented. And the how group will come out with ideas which are not easy, they are very difficult, almost bordering on impossible, but not impossible. And one word for that idea is audacious idea. It should be a very big idea. The other should say that, no, this is crazy. It is impossible. But that group internally feels that, no, this idea is implementable and it can be achieved. So that is called audacious idea. And now the group has work. These ideas have come, and you have in a way crowdsourced this idea. Everybody is on board. It is the idea of the group, and then it can be discussed and we can implement those ideas. And I can assure you that those ideas will be the best ideas around that theme that you have chosen. And with your input as a leader and your network of resources, I think you can create a new roadmap of moving from this survival phase to the leading phase. Right now, I have developed a nomenclature that in the month of April and also May, we were in a survival mode. And we just managed the crisis with our creative responses, with our empathy, with our intense love for the children, and with our intense sense of responsibility. But at the same time, we readjusted along the line. We learned the ropes. But if the same thing is continuing, even if it is not continuing, I think we have learned a lesson as to how to manage a crisis. So the first phase was survival. Right now, we are in the phase of readjusting our resources, learning new things, learning from our mistakes, or learning from our experiences. And now, out of you and out of many other schools, leaders have to emerge. So we have to lead by example, that how we can be not only a crisis manager, but a skillful, well-managed distance learning or in-person learning or hybrid learning centers of excellence that we are exhibiting at this point of time. The difference for the school leaders today is that pre-COVID, you had the opportunity to excel on your campus, on beautiful, picturesque campuses. For the last 2 months, you had nothing to do with the campus, and you had to excel as a leader on a virtual platform, online. You had to hop from one class to other. The scenario that is emerging is that we have to be the school leaders of excellence who are managing a hybrid system of education. So you are hopping from your nice building to a nice virtual platform, and you are catering to the needs of the children who are in the building, who are at home, who have access to technology, and who do not have access to technology. I have always held the view that as principals and as teachers, we are caterers, not supplying food in the literal sense, but we are the caterers to serve the needs of the children. And that is where our leadership comes from. So as caterers of the needs of the children, we have to do everything that it takes to fulfill those needs, provided that we identify those needs, we prepare ourselves to fulfill those needs, we manage the resources, and we come out on top as we have done in the past. So that is what I think. Right now we will have a question answer session, but if there is something that you would like to connect with me, my email is here, my Twitter account, LinkedIn, Facebook, and my website. Whichever medium you think is convenient to you, you can connect with me. With this, I go back to Aditi. I will stop sharing my screen, and you can open the floor for questions.
Thank you. Once again, sir, a big thank you to you from all of us. This is my reading that in this slightly unusual time of a crisis, we have come together very beautifully, and we have had leaders like you, thought leaders like you, influencers like you, who have not only thought of new things, but are so willingly sharing. So I think as GPSC, we're going to jump at the chance of involving you more and more with us and with the teachers. And now
I'll be more than happy, Aditi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It's an honor for us, and especially because for you it's a homecoming now. So now we know.
Yes,
ab to hum hak se bulayenge. So Aarti ma'am, you had a question?
Yeah. So really enjoyed listening to you, sir. It was, this blended learning is so close to my heart as well. So I was just wondering, like there is a short way of reaching to the children. We know their engagement, their output would be really maximum through blended learning. So can you
Yeah.
suggest something, some formula of this kind for my teachers as well? With so many rapid changes happening, what is that one thing that we could do to make their teaching effective, to transform them and bring them into, this era where they just cannot do chalk and talk? So what is the solution for the teachers of today?
Yeah, Aarti, thank you very much for your very nice question. I think the only way we can get something of our teachers, or we expect something of our teachers, is I will give you this example, but before that example, let me complete it. If you invest in teachers, then only you will get the dividend, let me tell you. And there is no substitute to investment in teachers. And therefore, as school leaders and as management, 2 or 3 things that we have to do. The first, that now we have to accept the strengths of the teachers, and we have to work with the strengths, right? We have to identify the needs of the teachers at this point of time to make them more effective. So if that is the need, how do we enhance that need? How do we strengthen that need? And the third thing is that, there is no substitute to empathy and compassion. So if that we are able to imbue in our teachers, that they have to connect with children, they have to empathize with them, they have to find out, at this point of time, of course, it is 2 months now, but it is not a long time. I think many of our children will be in the same position. If we are able to talk to the children, the paucity that they are facing, the well-being crisis that they are facing, our children at this point of time, barring few, I can tell you, Aarti, they are competing in their own houses. What they are competing with? Their first competition is with the bandwidth. Second competition is with devices. Third competition is with a quiet place in the house, howsoever big house they may have, right? So, these are the competitions that they are facing. And teachers have to be very, very, compassionate about it. But at the same time, as leaders, we have to be compassionate with the teachers. So we have to have a conversation with them. We have to find out what are their needs, because it is the well-being of the teachers also which we have to factor in, right? And I gave this example to another group, that when we are traveling, the air hostess, when she gives instructions, which we hardly hear because we think we know everything, but they also say that please put on the oxygen mask on you first before you attend to others. So I will translate that experience to say that as principals, let us take care of ourselves, and then we take care of teachers. Teachers take care of themselves, and then they take care of the children. I think this is the only cycle which will bring the result that you are talking about.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was really very apt.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
The next question is from Nirmal ma'am from CCA school, one of our veterans of Gurgaon and someone we all look up to.
Yes,
Nirmal
ma'am, thank
ma'am,
you.
You're mute. Nirmal ma'am, you're mute. That sounds rude. Your mic is mute. Sorry.
Yes, it's okay. Fine. Thank you so much for kindly. Good evening, Dr. Pandey, sir. And
thank you, ma'am.
And my dear colleagues, nice to see you all, even though in the virtual world. Sir, do you envisage in the future a mindset with a blend of 50% e-learning and 50% contact learning, limited to activities, contact learning limited to just activities or practicals, and as a result, because of this, a reduction in manpower, revenues, and multi-usage of infrastructure? Because do we envisage, do we have a mindset tomorrow if this comes to us, just as COVID came suddenly, are we prepared for it, and do we envisage this in future? Thank you, sir.
Yes, so I am absolutely envisaging, ma'am, that we have to move with these two. The percentage I'm not able to forecast at this stage, but it is just like Nisarg. You see, you remember Nisarg? I mean, this
Yes.
was the storm which started the coast of Maharashtra, and the inundation took place. Luckily, nothing worse happened. Similarly, it happened in the coastal areas of Odisha. So what I'm saying is that let us embrace the online teaching as an integral to our teaching learning process. Number one. Of course, what I'm saying is that we cannot substitute certain things that we do on the campuses, we can do online. I'm not saying that. But if we have to go online, we have to make it as effective as in-person teaching is. And even if they come to the campus, those things which they have missed in the campuses, the socialization, the sports, the talking to each other, socio-emotional learning, those things we should do more when they are in person, because we never know when they can be sheltered in home once again. So brief answer to your question, ma'am, I am absolutely envisaging this hybrid system that we will have to follow, and we have to make the best of both the worlds.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. That was really helpful. Who was the next? Was it Dhriti? Dhriti, ma'am, was it your question?
Yes,
Yeah.
Dhriti.
Yeah, I'm there. Good evening, Dr. Pandey. When we talk about
evening,
blended learning, we know it is something very personalized. It is kind of mastery based also, and the students have to take the ownership also to some extent. But do you think that students and parents are ready to take that charge and no longer be spoon-fed to make blended learning effective? Are they ready for it?
They may not be ready for it. After all, it is a human nature. We are not ready for any change. Tell me one change for which human beings are ready readily. So let us not expect that they will be ready readily. We were not ready for this. But Aditi and I know on every platform we were talking about embedding technology. And we did it only as a cosmetic process. But when did we embed it? And when we were left with no option, what effort did we leave and not embed technology? We did it. So what I'm saying is the human nature will resist change. And any new experience, people are fearful. People are afraid. I'll tell you something very interesting, Dhriti ma'am. The research which is coming forward as an experience of these 2 months is that the children who were introvert in physical classrooms, they are doing exceedingly well in online classes.
Absolutely.
And the reason, and even those teachers, even some of the teachers who were not rated very highly in person classrooms are doing extremely well, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is an opportunity, and we have to build on those findings. And parents, you see, even in person, how much interest parents were taking. In nursery classes, 90% is the attendance on PTM, and in class 12 it is 20%, isn't it?
Yes.
And we are going to deal with the same group of parents. But I have seen, many people have seen, and now there is going to be a research and data that parents have loved it. In one school, a parent wrote that when I joined the prayer in the morning, I cried. You see, because the prayer was so touching. I did not know my child sings this prayer every day in the school. So I think we have to build optimism, ma'am. But I'm not saying that I'm 100% sure about it, but we have to build optimism. We have to show perseverance, and I'm sure it will change.
Thank you. Thank you.
So one more thing, I think everybody will agree, there is such a reduction in absenteeism now.
Absolutely.
There is hardly anyone absent, and if they're absent, they always inform us that I'm not well, or somebody, there's an emergency in the house. So there is a lot to say for this kind of teaching learning process, which I think we must embrace, like you said.
Absolutely.
This question was with
absolutely, I agree.
Who was to ask the next question? Charu ma'am, can I call you in? Charu Mani ma'am from DAV 49.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Hello, Dr. Ashok Pandey.
Yes, ma'am. Charu ji, namaste.
But I am Ahmedabad. Yeah. So, really illuminating session, Dr. Pandey. So, blending learning indeed is the need of the hour. And you have very beautifully explained and involved all the aspects. I would like you to throw a little more light on how to include life skills, gender sensitivity. I don't want my child to become the fish of a pond. So how this will help me in seeing to it that our students are exposed for the VUCA world. They are getting ready for the VUCA world, the volatile, unpredictable, complex world that it is.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I got your question. So that's what I think one of the strategies that I mentioned was blending the cognitive and the socio-emotional learning. So we have to, whether we are online or in person, I think the SDGs, which you see the screen behind me, I'll take a minute to explain it. It is a virtual screen that I have put. You see an image of the butterfly.
Yes.
Do you all see the butterfly?
Yes, we can.
So this butterfly is the human chain. And on 22nd of May, the United Nations declared 22nd May as Global Day of Solidarity. And they have released this image which I have put, the butterfly wings. And it is an inspiration for all of us to fight with this problem and also to fight with the other problems, which are inherent in our society. So it is not only that God should give us strength and all human beings should come together to form a chain to fight COVID-19, but also to shift our behavior to achieve 17 sustainable developmental goals. And one of the goals, Charu ma'am, is goal number 5, and that is called gender equality. Now, gender inequality works at many layers. And unfortunately, in the past 2 months, when people have gone back to home, the gender-related violence has also increased. You see, because of 2 reasons, the isolation, the helplessness, and also the unavailability of help. So that has increased the gender violence also. Now, this is the context. I think if we have to sensitize our children, probably I will make a project and give it to 50 children in a group of 10 each, that please study, find data, and give suggestions as to how this gender-related violence can be not only minimized, but eradicated. So this is one way to do it. And I think we have moved in our schools, probably this gender equality may not be that much a problem, but the problem is of sometimes of hypocrisy, that what we talk and what we practice. So we have to sensitize our children to develop conviction, to develop a real strength of that conviction, which not only they talk about, but also they practice. So my suggestion is that we have to weave around our activities on these problems and let children work on it and let children come out with solutions, and we become the facilitators.
Wow.
Thank you.
Amazing. Is Mr. Chaturvedi here in the room? From Maruti Kunj, he had wanted to ask a question. So, sir, I have some. Do you have some time, sir, or do you wish to?
Yeah.
So, there is one question from Anupama Mehta of Amity School 46, and there is a similar question from Mr. Jameel Ahmed, principal of Aravali Public School. they both ask, how do we use blended learning techniques for primary students? Now, I'm not sure if this will be part of your talk with the teachers, which you plan to do, or will you be able to answer in brief over here? How to use blended learning for primary students?
So I think blended learning for nursery, primary, middle school, and senior school, they will vary on several scales.
Absolutely.
Scale number 1, and let us put a spectrum: 100% screen time and no screen time. So the first parameter is that. So for the senior children, spending more time on a screen is not as much a problem as for the junior children, right? So,
Yes.
so the primary school and the pre-primary school has to sit down and ideate as to how we can constructively reduce the screen time and how many activities, even in a virtual mode, we can do without using the screen. This is number 1. And of course, for the senior students, we are doing on screen because they can afford to do it, and there is a lot of content and things like that, so they can manage. Now the question about primary, I think it is coming out of 2 things. I do not know, but I'm just making a guess that they're spending too much of time on a screen. They do not have attention time, and teachers may find it difficult to engage them for 40 minutes and 45 minutes. But I can tell you, at least my experience and the experience that I have found is that the young children, their attention deficit, if at all, they compensate it by showing their love for the teacher,
Yes.
or by not showing disrespect to the teacher, right? So let us put it that way. So they will be there. So attention is not an issue. The only thing is that how you engage them. So I would suggest show them videos. You put your own podcast and tell them that please listen to it, and tomorrow we are going to talk about it. Give them group activities. It might take a little longer time, but at the same time, you have a lot of time for primary school. And whether blended or non-blended, my request to you is please never talk about the syllabus for the primary school children. Even if you take 2 themes and teach it for the entire year, I can assure you, you are not doing any sin, right? But if you are completing a syllabus because you think syllabus completion is the objective, then I would say that it is not a sin, but very close to that, right? So take themes, take lesser syllabus, spend more time, give them more activities. Some of the parents will be very interested, involve them also. Storytelling, role play, those things are very, very important in the primary and pre-primary section. I think these are 2 or 3 suggestions which come to my mind at this point.
Thank you. I'm sure, sir, when you do the workshop with the teachers, there'll be probably another 7 things that you will be able to share with them.
Yes, what I am planning to do, and if it materializes, that I'll give them a hands-on model online class conduct, right? So they will have to commit to me that they are the teacher, they are the students, and I am the teacher.
Absolutely.
Right? So then only it will work.
There is another question, sir, from a Divya Srivastav, who asks, how can blended learning be collaborated with assessment?
So I was wondering that we have almost finished everything and this question has not come. You see, but finally, Divya Srivastavji, thank you very much for asking the question of questions. Assessment is always an issue, right? And so 2 or 3 things we have to keep in mind, that what is our objective of assessment. So let us also break assessments into groups, you see. So pre-primary assessment is different, primary is different, senior is different. Now, as we know, this time again, let us thank CBSE for pre-2010 era, when they introduced, I think 2010 to 2015, Aditi, the CCE.
Yes, CCE, 2009,
Yeah,
September it came in.
So they introduced to us the formative and summative assessments. I think online learning is a huge opportunity for formative assessment.
Yes.
This is number one. Number two is, let us make assessments a little differential. So little differential means, do you have the innovative capability to tell to your class that here is the topic that we have done, and please present a summary of this topic in the manner that you want to do. So some of them you will come out, sir, we want to do a PPT presentation. Some of them will say, sir, I want to record my speech. Some of them will say, no, sir, I want to give a speech in the classroom. Some of them will say that, sir, 5 of us want to come together and do it. I think time has come to think really out of box ideas to carry out assessments. So differential assessments, several flexibilities in assessment, and of course, what we call a lot of, I said once that no assessment in person or online should go without this tagline that I am a teacher, I have empathy for my children, and I have confidence in my children. So write it just behind you on your table, empathy for and confidence in the children, and then you go for assessment. I can assure you any assessment that you design will do good for the children, right? And another tagline that I use is grace before grades. So show your grace before you're going to grade the children.
So there's one last question I think we can fit in. This has come from Deepika Rastogi. And she also comes up with a very topical problem, sir, that today everybody's talking about increased screen time for all children. So how are we going to keep a check on students' screen time while completely getting involved with blended learning and hybrid learning?
So we have control over the screen time that we want them to engage with us. And if they have additional screen time for whatever purpose, I think that is where I said that blending of parental cooperation is also very necessary. Right. So sometimes we give work which requires screen time, and the parent will say, "Arey, wo to screen pe hi baitha hua 6 ghante se." Then probably we'll have to collaborate that which screen time is more important, right? Mm-hmm. So first thing is quality of screen time is important, and of course that will determine what is the quantity of screen time. And as I said earlier, for the junior classes up to age 10, in my opinion, let us please innovate that how much minimum work that we need to do with the help of a screen, and can we take it to the mode of conversation, listening, group activities, so that we reduce the screen time for the junior children at least. And I think our concern is also for the junior children rather than the senior children. Senior children can still manage, they make a roster, they can prioritize, but the priority for the junior children is to be fixed by the teachers and the parents. That's what I can suggest at this point of time.
Thank you so much, sir. May I request?
Fine, thank you. Thank you very much. And
Sir, Aparna ma'am will give a brief thank you.
Vote of thanks?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, fine, fine.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really wonderful listening to you. And thank you so much also for this proposal that we can have a session for our teachers. And I'm really grateful that you have consented to conduct this session on blended learning for our teachers. We'll definitely work on this. And for GPSC school teachers, this session will be conducted. I also extend my thanks to Ms. Aditi Mishra for wonderfully moderating this session. Thank you so much, ma'am, and also helping us in getting sir over for GPSC. Thank you.
I know one thing, sir has never said no to anybody.
Okay.
I was just lucky to have caught him at a time when he's a little.
Yeah. And my thanks
I
to
look for an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aparna ji. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Aditi. Thank you, Aarti. And thanks to everybody in my entire Gurgaon family. Thanks a lot.
Happy homecoming to you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you all the participants.
And warm greetings of the World Environment Day today.
Yes, sir. To you also. So you will find this. This is also on a Facebook page, sir, for GPSC.
Okay.
We'll send you a
wonderful.
link for that, so you can share it with others.
Please do that. Thanks a lot.
Sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much. Thank you, friends.
everybody.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye
Thanks a
bye.
lot.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.